عرفنا ذي العبودية اللي مسنا على الكرامة قضت، عرفنا نريدها هي اللي مسنا بذلك دم وحية، عرفنا الدنيا وقتية عن سابق علم يا حسين وعن تركيز بالفكرة، حبيناك واتبعناك ونتوقع قصص مرة، ونتوقع وقت محذور وساعات تمر خاطرة، ما بين ليك دينا وبين يدبر الغدرة، ومع إحساسنا هذا ويشفنا وننتظره، آمنا وتوطنا على كل شي بعد يجرى، معلوم لي شي مظهر يوغزى الشوك بالشجرة، على ريحتكم شينو الأزهر نتحمل آذى جمرة، تربة كربلاء تشهد المين دامنا أصبحت حمرة، ويوم العشير بعاشور هم يشهد مع الذكرى، وكل طعنة ترمح تشهد، وكل سيف الطيبر طابرة كلها تصيح آمنا بمحبتك يا ابو العترة، حقيقتنا وطبيعتنا اكسبناها على الفطرة، وكل احنا وكل دماء مهدور، وكل طعنة وجرح ونحور، احنا وكل دماء مهدور، وكل طعنة وجرح ونحور، بساحات الشرف كنا صحنا بطعمنا يا حسين مثل ما قلنا عالفطرة لا صدفة ولا تعوي، افرضني شذ عن خطك وانسيري على خطي بعيد، افرض يجتي
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله، صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله يا شهيد كربلاء صلى الله عليك وعلى آل بيتك الطاهرين يا ليتنا كنا معكم سيدي فنفوز والله فوزا عظيما. جاء عن الامام رضا عليه السلام أنه قال: يا فضيل أتجلسون وتتحدثون؟ قال: نعم. فقال عليه السلام: إن تلك المجالس أحبها، فاحيوا أمرنا فرحم الله من أحيا أمرنا. We commemorate the martyrdom of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam annually. The beginning of every Arabic calendar, the Hijri calendar, is the month of Muharram, the forbidden month, which the Arabs back then, the pagans, used to forbid fighting in that month. Is a month of peace. Yet as events took their toll in the Islamic history, we came to the martyrdom of Imam Hussein alayhi salam in this month, this forbidden month. And what continued after the math of Karbala is that the Shia, the followers of the Ahl Bayt alayhim salam specifically, they mourn the death of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam and the martyrdom of Imam al-Hussein and his companions every year in this month for the first 10 days at least, and throughout the year generally. And because we do this repetitive action of mourning and commemorating the martyrdom of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, sometimes we are bombarded with questions and doubts. Like, for example, why do you guys keep crying for Imam Hussein? Why do you guys keep doing the same thing over and over again? Don't you have enough? Isn't it enough for you guys that you mourned once? Why do you have to keep doing it? What's the purpose? What's the reason? History is gone. Let it go, right? Forget about it. Move on with your lives. History is in the past. These kind of doubts and questions, we are faced with them constantly throughout the year, and specifically in the month of Muharram, where we face such a ferocious attack on the Shia faith, on the Ahlul Bayt, on the followers of the Ahlul Bayt specifically. This ferocity, sometimes it not only in words, but sometimes it becomes even violent to the extent that a lot of the followers of the Ahlul Bayt who go to Karbala, for example, they get martyred in the way by car explosions or by being shot or being killed by snipers, or for whatever reason they try to deter the followers of the Ahlul Bayt from commemorating this event. And now in our day, with the expand of technology and the social media, there's a campaign that's been created specifically to attack the majalis of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, to attack these gatherings of Ahl Bayt alayhim salam. And these campaigns, sometimes sadly even done by those who claim to be following the faith themselves. And this campaign that's been raged against the majalis of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam has been done in different languages as well, not only in one language. And they try to attack the fundamental belief of this azab. Okay, so now they're telling us it's if you sit and cry, you're a backward thinker. If you beat your chest, you're a cruel person. If you show extreme signs of sadness and grief, then you have mental issues, right? So we're constantly bombarded with these doubts and these questions and why and what and how. So it is very important for us on the first night of Muharram, we try to understand and we ask ourselves, why do we do what we do? Why do we mourn for Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam? Why do we do the majalis every year? Why do we go through the trouble, through the pain, through the hassle, spending money, spending time for these majalis, right? So I will try to bring your attention to a few points that you need to keep in mind, that every time this event comes, you need to keep this information in your mind so you could counterfeit any doubt, any question, or any shake in your belief when it comes to this majalis, to these events. Now, I started with the hadith from Imam Rida Salamullah Alayhi, talking to one of his companions, Fudayl. The question of the Imam was very direct, very precise. He says, do you sit and gather as Shia? Do you guys come together and sit and talk about our affair, the Ahl Bayt alayhim salam? He said, of course we do so. And the Imam says to him, these are the gatherings, these are the places, these are the majalis that I love, that we Ahl Bayt love. And you have to keep in mind that Ahl Bayt salamullah alayhim, their love and their hate is the love and the hate of Allah. The Imam, he only loves that which Allah loves and hate that which Allah hates. So if the Imam loves these majalis, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala what? Loves these majalis. Now we ask the question, why should we commemorate and sit and gather and talk about these events? One, as a human beings, it is our nature, which is our sad nature, I should say, is that we tend to forget things. We forget very quickly. So an event could happen, let's say a few days later it's forgotten. You know, like they say today, you could be famous for 20 minutes and then you've forgotten, right? So we have a tendency to forget. When it comes to big events, if we do not commemorate them, if we do not sit and talk about them, if we do not discuss them, we will surely forget, right? Just in the same way that the major event in history has been forgotten, especially in the Islamic history. I'll give you an example, which is very close to the month of Muharram. The event of Ghadir. The event of Ghadir happened on the 18th of Dhul Hijjah, right? Which is only about 12, 13 days away from Muharram, give or take. Correct? It took the Muslims back then, 72 days, which is from the 18th of the Qa'dah to 28th of Safar, which is the demise and the martyrdom of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It took them 72 days to forget what they've done and the allegiance they gave to Amir al-Mu'mineen and to Allah and to the Prophet, and they went against it. Why? Because they did not sit and gather and talk about this event. So it was forgotten. And as time went by until our current time, the event of Ghadir does not exist in, at least in the mind of those who are not following the Ahl Bayt Salamullah Alayhi. Or even the followers of the Ahl Bayt Salamullah Alayhi, the only time they remember Ghadir is on the 18th of the Qa'dah. The rest of the year is not there. Which made people believe that the concept of imama is that of no importance, is that which does not require a thorough analysis and does not require us to sit and talk about it constantly. That's one of the bad effects of forgetting. So when it comes to Muharram, why do we commemorate? Why do we sit? Why do we gather? Is because we do not want to forget what happened in the plains of Karbala. If we forget, then everything will fall apart, as you will see. So one, because we had a tendency to forget, therefore we need to come every year and sit and talk. That's one. Two, we live in a life where we are constantly busy. I am busy with work. I'm busy with school, I'm busy with family, busy with kids, busy with the spouse, and so on and so on. This kind of business throughout the year, it also makes me forget, right? I tend to move away from the path. I tend to slip away. So there has to be a time where I need to correct my path, where I need to. Muharram is vital. That's number 3, why me and you need to sit. 4, as time goes by, the distance between us and the event becomes bigger, right? So the event of Karbala took place 6061 Hijri. Now we are in 1400 and something, right? So the time keeps going on. Now, the further we move away from the time of the event, the less the information that we get from the event becomes less and becomes distorted. If we leave it as it is, and we leave it to the books of history, these events will change. Let me give you an example that you can see. For example, you look at events that are happening in our current time. If you look back, for example, 10 years ago, or 15 years, we need to look and sit and come together and commemorate the month of Muharram, because our souls die. The souls are like flowers. If you don't feed it, if you don't give it water, if you don't nurture it, it will die. Simple. It will fall apart. Our souls need to live. It requires to flourish. It needs to be always connected to its Lord. If we leave just like that, it will die out. It's not a matter of information, because most people think, well, if I know this and I know that and I read, then I'm good. No, you're not good. Because the human being is divided into 2 things, a soul and a body. The soul has requirements and the body also has requirements. The requirements of the body is to feed it. The requirement of the soul is not only you need to feed it, but you need to make it alive. It needs to feel feelings. The martyrdom of Imam Hussein alayhi salam is the life, is the air, the oxygen, the water that you feed the soul with. So when you sit and commemorate, is that you're bringing your soul back to life. And that's why it's vital for me and you to come every year, and to come not only during the first 10 or the first 14 days, but throughout the year to remember this event of Karbala. Why? Because it brings me and you back to life. So there are 5, I just mentioned 5 reasons why me and you, we need to come back every year and talk about Karbala and never forget it, right? Now, what are the goals of these majalis? So now we understood why. What are the goals? I mean, everything has to have a goal, right? Number 1 goal of we're trying to achieve through the majalis of Imam Hussein alayhi salam and through attending these majalis is that as a nation, as an ummah, as a group of people, we need to come together and survive in the midst of this world that we live in. If we don't come together under the banner of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, as a nation, we will be on a lower rank. We will cease to exist. Why? Because there are many forces are on the outside that are trying to overtake our nation. If we submit to these people, we will die. We will die not in a figurative or not in a literal way, but in a figurative way. That we become nothing. What are we if it is not for what we believe in, for what we stand for? Any nation that needs to live and survive, it needs to have a motive. It needs to have a role model. It needs to have a leader. At least it needs to have a sacrifice for it to continue. The continuation of Islam, the continuation of our nation depends on Karbala, depends on the blood that Imam Hussein alayhi salam shed in the plains of Karbala. The survival of Islam depends on it. So this is one of the goals that we need to come and commemorate. 2, as a human beings, we need a role model. We need someone that could show me the way and lead by an example, right? How do I become a loving person? How do I become a devout person? How do I become a truthful person? How do I become a spiritual person? And so on and so on. These are the things that I want. Now, I want these to be embodied in someone else I could imitate, someone else I could follow. We need that role model. We need that qudwa, as we say in Arabic, right? We need someone to follow in his footsteps. And that's one of the goals of Muharram. That's one of the goals of these days, this month, specific month, is that we look at Imam Hussein alayhi salam as our role model, and we see what did he do in his life that I could take from. For example, when I look at the concept of racism, how did Imam Hussein betray racism? How did he look at it? He had servants with him, he had black people with him, he had people of different color, people of different races. How did he deal with them? Based on what? Right? So I need to go back to Karbala and I need to learn from that too. 3, when we cry for Imam Hussein alayhi salam, when we cry for his martyrdom, the concept of crying itself, it plays a major role on my mental capacity, on my mental health, on my physical health. It plays a role on my, what defines me as a person. Because the state of sadness, it has this thing where it makes your heart soft. It makes your heart more easy to accept things. It makes your heart more transparent to see things. So one of the goals of the majalis of Imam Hussein alayhi salam is to get us together, to get us emotionally moving. Because as we see that sadly our hearts are dying out. We don't feel much anymore. We watch the news, we watch millions of people being killed, million people being oppressed, and their right is taken, and I'm not moving. I'm not, shedding a tear. Nothing bothers me anymore. I don't care how many people are being killed or, what's happening in the world. As long as I'm okay. That's a problem. That indicates that my heart is dying out. I need to get my heart to live again. How do I do that? Let's come to the majalis of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Let's sit and talk and cry so we could get this heart to start pumping again, to start to feel again, right? Again, one of the reasons that we do this majalis, one of the reasons that we come and commemorate the martyrdom of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, because we need to stand against oppression. We live in a world where we are surrounded by oppression, mental oppression, logical oppression, intellectual oppression, wealth oppression, economic oppression, political oppression, and the list goes on. We are bombarded with these things. We need to stand up to this oppression. We need to say wrong is wrong. I can't let this pass. You can't feed me what you want and expect me not to say anything about it. If Karbala wasn't there, this notion of oppression will go away. And the enemies of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, they understood this fact very well. And that's why they spend money and time and effort in trying to deter me and you from the path of Al-Hussein alayhi salam, from the majalis of Al-Hussein alayhi salam. Why? Because if they could manage to move me and you from the path, then they could do whatever oppression they want, and no one's going to want to say anything to them. But as long as me and you are holding steadfast to the path of Imam Hussein, commemorating, coming to this majalis, they will find it very hard to stand in your way. They will count like 1,000, they will plot 1,000 plots before they come and try to come to you. So now let me try to summarize everything in short words. we come to these majalis of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, we commemorate these majalis because Karbala itself, the whole movement of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, it had multiple dimensions to it. The dimensions that me and you, we require in our life. It had the dimension of belief, enforcing our beliefs. The belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the belief in prophethood, the belief in imamah, the belief in the day of judgment. Karbala enforces these beliefs. So it had the fundamental belief dimension. It had the moral dimension. When it comes to our akhlaq, our ethics, our manners, Karbala reinforces that dimension in our lives. It has the dimension of showing us the reality of life, what life is, and how we should look at it and how we should live it. Karbala has that dimension. Karbala has a dimension of the political aspects to it. How do me and you live in a world that it tries to deprive me of my rights? So I need to be politically correct here. So Karbala also teaches me that aspect. Also Karbala teaches me and you our social duties towards one another. What should we do? What should we not do? Right? This is the message of Karbala. So from every direction you look at Karbala, you will see that Karbala has everything that we require. Because of its multi-dimensions, we need to come every year and sit and commemorate the martyrdom of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Now, me and you are not the first to come and sit and cry and mourn Imam Hussein, nor will be the last. All right, but it's good to highlight something, that the first majlis that was that took place, that was formed in the history, was by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. From day one, when Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam was born, and they brought him that baby wrapped in a white piece of fabric, and he looked at him and he carried him and he put him on his chest, the first thing he did, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he cried. When Salama asked him, why would you be crying on a day where you should be happy that you had a new grandson? And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, because of what my ummah, my people are going to do to him. How are they going to kill him? So the first majlis that took place was by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, not only he done that once, he done that multiple times. So throughout the years that Imam Hussein spent with the Prophet, which is about 6 to 7 years, every time the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam sees him, he sits and he cries. And sometimes he even brings his companions and he tells them what is going to happen to Imam Hussein. He used to tell his wives what's going to happen. He used to tell Fatima al-Zahra salamullah alayha what's going to happen to her son. And they used to sit and cry, even though Imam Hussein alayhi salam was alive. And me and you, we should move on the footsteps of our Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam by coming and crying for these majalis. Even Imam Ali alayhi salam, when he was passing, coming back from Basra, going back to Kufa, when he passed Karbala, he stood on the place where Imam Hussein was about to be, where he is about to be killed or in the future. And he was talking to Ibn Abbas and said, here the grandson of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is going to be martyred. And the Imam sat and started talking to him in a way where they said, Ibn Abbas, he said he started to cry so bitter. Bitter pain was coming from Amir al-Mu'mineen, crying for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. So the Ahl Bayt alayhim salam, throughout their life, they taught us that we need to come year after year after year to sit and gather and talk about Karbala and about Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Because like we started with the hadith, he says, in this, by coming and sitting, you bring our affair back to life. You bring Islam back to life. You yourself, if Islam lives, you will live. Your survival depends on your Islam, and Islam depends on Hussein alayhi salam. When the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, أنا من حسين أو حسين مني وأنا من حسين. Hussein is from me and I am from Hussein. If Hussein lives, the Prophet lives. If Hussein dies, Islam dies. The Prophet ﷺ dies. So me and you, we need to come here every year. We need to enforce that fact, renew our beliefs, renew our oath with Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and move on with our life and continue and pass that message to the generations to come. So at no time should my beliefs and my information and my opinion about Karbala and Imam Hussein should be tampered with or played with. Or I should let it go because someone else comes with a fancy slogan. Oh no, I'm going to sit here, I'm going to mourn, I'm going to cry, I'm going to lament, I'm going to beat my chest, beat my head for the love of Hussein. And there's nothing this world going to do about it. This is the belief that we need to have so firm, and we need to pass that to the generations to come. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله رحمك الله يا أبا عبد الله لعن الله من قتلك ولعن الله من شرك في دمك ولعن الله من بلغه ذلك فرضي به أنا إلى الله من ذلك بريء وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على محمد وآل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين.